Hargensen.
It is from me.
Keep running. Well, there are 10 minutes left.
Stick them up your ass. You wait a minute.
Well, what for? We do this all the time.
You're so ignorant.
You too, Chris. Spit out that gum.
Where'll I put it, Miss Collins?
You can choke on it for all I care. Just get it out of your mouth.
I think a lot of people maybe who haven't seen Carrie in a while, you do forget how charming and just how well it captures high school. Did you feel that you guys were making something special?
Yes, I think so. First of all, there was a really strong feeling of camaraderie on the set and collaboration. But in the rearview mirror, now having had a lot of time to reflect on it, having made many movies since then, the ones that work like that one, there is a very specific feeling on the set. It's like the machine is whirling, everything's working together. You're not pushing up against something. There's not that struggle. There's a flow. And it certainly felt like that. It just felt like everybody was in the right place, the right time, right character, right actor, the crew, everything. And it really takes that. It really takes that. You have to start with a good script. That's number one. Good story. You have nothing without that. And the right director matched. But, we were young. We all thought we were pretty terrific. What can I say? So it wasn't a surprise to us that it was successful, but I don't think we were really prepared for how successful it was going to be. And then we were going to be recognized. And, it was really, really crazy.
I was reading an interview with Stephen King, and he was talking about when he was, and this was when nobody knew who he was, but when he found out that Brian De Palma was directing it, he said he's the perfect director for it because he gets the funny side of horror.
You hit on something really important. I think really effective and good horror films, stories do have that element of humor. You need it to diffuse the tension, and it actually increases the terror, I think. You're kind of, you're relaxed, it's fine, and here it comes.
What was it like seeing the movie for the first time?
It was stunning. It was on a massive screen, and it was just, it was everything I hoped for and more, because you can kind of tell when you're seeing the raw footage, you can tell, you don't know how it's going to be edited, but you can tell what's there. And you can tell that it was definitely compelling to watch. And it was thrilling, to say the least.
I bet it's especially with some of Brian's longer takes. There's the real famous one that kind of kicks off the stuff with the prom where eventually we see you and John under the stage and then we go up the rope and we see the bucket and everything. So just that on its own terms, it's like its own little mini movie within the larger context.
Oh yeah. And it was such a long shooting of that sequence, and everything is timed out perfectly. And it was the one day they had the big crane and it's so funny when I look at it now. It's like when our heads pop out, as if no one would see us. But you accept it in some way, and people laugh and they get it. They want to go with it, and I love our profiles. My nose is sticking out in the shadow, the silhouette when they go around the stage. But it was really complex, and I know that the studio did come that day. Somebody from the studio, the Suits, they showed up and it's like, this is taking too long and we're going to be behind schedule. And I just remember, the tension on the set that day. And I think Brian said something, he told me later about it, that he just said, fine, let's shoot it simple. We'll shoot the whole movie real simple. And then they batted, no, go ahead with what you're shooting here, So, but it's one thing to shoot something like that. And it's another thing to actually see it in the context of the film, because by then, by the time we got to the prom, because everything else was more or less practical locations, with the exception of the interior of the car with John and I and a few other things, and obviously the set with Sissy and Piper, but this time with the whole ensemble together on the stage, shooting this prom sequence. I think we were there at least 2, maybe 3 weeks. I don't remember now, but we were banned from the dailies at that time because I think someone had smoked a little pot or something like that. And Brian said, "That's it. You're done." So all that stuff that we shot, and nobody else that I know of saw any of it until we saw the movie.
When you all had to do the plug it up scene in the locker room, was that a difficult scene for you? Did you have to really get into it and treat her meanly, or was it okay, cut, and everybody laugh about it?
The shower scene was a really hard scene on every front. The day that we got there and we were shooting at what was then called the Redondo Beach High School, it's something else now, it's some sort of community center, but it was a really dilapidated environment, and wasn't like a set where everything was really cushy and comfortable. And so we got there and got undressed, and I have a picture like all of us sitting out in our robes, sitting on the steps together. And I had someone take a picture of us, and we just sat. We were there for like 6 hours waiting. Sissy was inside shooting all of that stuff that she shot in the shower prior to us being in there. So by the time we got in there, I think there was just a lot of tension, and of course any kind of nudity and partial nudity, because not everybody was naked, but basically Brian said, "Oh, there's going to be, a lot of fog, a lot of an arm here, a leg there." And, of course we know that wasn't exactly what happened, but anyway, so we shot all that stuff. We shot our stuff separately, and then she had her stuff that she did. And then when we got to getting dressed finally and going in to do that scene, we were all comfortable with each other, and she was so removed. It was like we had nothing to do with her. So she really was like the other on the set. Do you know what I mean? Not that anyone disliked her, but it was just, we had nothing to do with her. So when we started that, it was like something took over. It was like a frenzy of ugliness, and not rage, because it's not an angry scene, but it was just this thing. And you could feel it's like the adrenaline working it up, and the mob mentality that takes over. So after the take, you just would feel yourself literally shaking. It was a very disturbing scene to shoot. Now, some people say, "Oh, you probably had fun." It was not fun. There was nothing fun about that scene. We were not laughing. And it really was, it wasn't even about what she was experiencing, what we were experiencing. So it took a while to shake that off, I would say, for sure.
It's interesting you mentioned that mob mentality, because that tends to be all over the book and all over the movie to a degree, because there's so many power imbalances. Chris's control over Billy, Margaret White's control over her daughter Carrie. You've got Sue Snell over Tommy. There's so much control in the book and in the movie. And Stephen, in his intro to one of the editions of Carrie, was talking about how Carrie was based on 2 girls that he knew, and one of them, would get made fun of a lot. And he said, I didn't make fun of her, but I didn't stop it. And that seems like that's kind of a big aspect of Carrie, is the mob of high school that can be so overwhelming that it's not just Chris who's mean to Carrie, but it's the mob itself that's uncontrollable.
And you think about it, is it only in high school? Does it carry on when we get older? If there's the person who's like the one in the crowd that has the voice and that people listen to and think, or is the expert on whatever, how many people just go along? We see this all the time in life now, and kind of some of the ugliness that goes on. But I think particularly in high school, you don't want to be different. You want to be part of, and you certainly want to be part of and similar to the ones that you look up to. And as much as, while you're trying to individuate away from your parents, now you're in a cluster, with the people in school. So I think that, where the wind blows with whatever person, woman, man, whoever, girl, boy, that's leading the charge, the others are going to go for fear that if they don't, what's the retaliation going to be? Are they going to come after me? I don't want to be the one. I don't want to stand out here, you know? So I think that's just part of the human condition, which of course is what Stephen King writes about so brilliantly.
Did you read the book before this camera started rolling?
Well, I'm sure you've heard the story, but I was going to just throw in the towel here in California. I'd been here for 2 months, for God's sakes, and nothing had happened. It was time to go home. If I wasn't a star by then. Anyway, I ran into Harry Helberg, who was the casting director, and I knew her from New York from my commercial days. And she said, "Oh, it's the last day of casting tomorrow. And, you won't get the job, but at least you'll meet, the director, come and pick up the script, and it's based on a book." And I remember going to the library in West Hollywood and getting the book, and I had the script, and I had this overnight to be there the next day. And I think I just sort of ferociously went through the book, like really fast, looking for stuff about the character and trying to find it. I don't know that I've ever really read it cover to cover. I don't remember because I was in such a frenzy, but I got enough from what I did read in the book about my character and certainly the script. And then I did some writing myself, things that you wouldn't even know about the character, things that were personal to me, what she was thinking, how she was feeling, just in my own little biography. So no, I don't know. I don't know that I read it from cover to cover. I don't remember, but I know I read some of it.
Well, it helps too that the script is so close to the book. So essentially you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you weren't really part of that, I guess, for lack of a better term, cattle call that Carrie was doing with Star Wars, right? Where there's those legendary stories of actors trying out for both. You came in after, and were you the last role?
The last person of the last day to read. And I left there. By the time I got home, there was a message saying, "We're going to screen test you." So, I wasn't expecting anything from that. Just like, finally, I get to meet somebody. Finally, I get to read for something. And I remember Brian, this is sort of silly, but, I did commercials for a long time. And I watched a lot of movies, loved movies, but I just assumed that directors directed commercials and then they went and did movies. And I figured they were probably old men by now. So when he came down the stairs, I'm laughing, wow, he seems very young to be a director, of a movie. Anyway, so he laughed at something I did. I thought, oh, I think he liked what I did, and that was pretty exciting. And then we screen tested. Everybody who screen tested for the roles, he screen tested 2 people for each role. I rehearsed with Michael Talbot, who also tested for the role of Billy Nolan, but screen tested with both Michael and with John. And I remember when John walked in the room, I just looked at him and I thought, well, he's getting the part, so I guess whoever rehearsed with him is going to get the part. I didn't know how any of it worked. Anyway, yeah, I love those stories about those crazy cattle calls, and I'll take her and you take her. No, I want him, and all that craziness.
Did Stephen King ever show up on set? Did you ever get to meet him?
Not when I was there. The only time I met Stephen King was down in the village in a little bookstore, and he had, I think it was like a book signing or something like that. And I just really met him, and I was there with Brian, and I just met him in passing. I'd love to meet him again sometime. I really would. I'm such a fan of his.
It's interesting in talking to people who've been influenced by him, because he's so prolific and his work has inspired so many people. And I was just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit about like how maybe his writing inspired you or inspired the character of Chris and your interpretation of it.
Here's the thing with Stephen King is that he really gets you into the mind of the characters. That's why I like reading him, because he takes you inside. It's not just an external representation of a character. He gets into the workings of what makes them who they are and why they are the way they are. Even though I said I didn't really thoroughly read the book, the script does pretty well tell you who this girl is. I mean, you can't change it. It's there, all you have to do is show up for it and bring whatever your own personal feelings about her, or I guess with me, I had to make her more, not likable, but I had to find a reason to like her. And I think if memory serves me in the book, there was a certain vulnerability about her. She wasn't just an out and out horrible. I just, like I said, I don't really remember, but that kind of floats through me a little bit. But in looking at all of his characters and all the films that I've seen, the books that I've read of his, the main thing is that the characters they're relatable, they're understandable. You understand why they are the way they are, what makes them tick. As a reader, it becomes more complex. It really isn't that black and white. Even in a book like, I love Cujo and I love the dog going, oh, I have a headache. This is really kind of, it wasn't just an out and out horror, but in Mr. Mercedes, I'm a big fan of that series. I love that book. You get into the minds of these characters and it's like he does a horrible, horrible thing, but you at the same time have some sympathy for him. So I like that he's able to do that, that he writes complex characters.
That's present in so much of his work. And it starts off with Carrie. Here's a girl who's wronged by her mother and by high school students. But, if we think about in real life, a lot of us were wronged in high school to some degree, but does it warrant us setting the entire town on fire and killing everyone? No, and so there is just a lot of complexity in a story that on its surface seems like kind of a straightforward revenge story, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, you take those characters and that could be their fantasy. It's like, well, I'm going to dump some blood on her. She goes to the prom, or I'm going to set the town on, there is that. It's a hard passage going from, childhood, adolescence to teenagers. It's like you feel like a grown up, but you really have no power. We're not Carrie. We don't have that power. We can't immediately exact revenge or do what we want to do. I mean, you can't even drive for the most part. It's like, can I have a ride? Can I have $5? Whatever it is. And certainly those aspects would resonate with the younger, with teenagers. But in the retrospect or perspective, and that was the good thing about all of us being in our 20s, it's like you have that perspective on what it was like then.
Before I let you go, I just wanted to ask about your charity work, We Spark, and if you could just talk a little bit about that, because it's really a great thing that you're doing over there.
Oh, thanks. Wendy Jo Sperber, who I made and met on I Want to Hold Your Hand, she founded this charity based on the fact that she had breast cancer and had a family, and it affected all of her family, her children and siblings and parents. And there was very little support available for people outside of unless you were the cancer patient or hands-on caregiver. So I first got involved as a celebrity golfer to help her raise the money. And I really didn't know what she was thinking about. But a couple of years later, she called me and said, I found a place and can you help me? And you're into all that woo-woo stuff and, alternative and integrative medicine. She was talking about healing things. So this is back in, 2000. So it's a long time ago. So I got involved. I said, I'll help you. And I helped her with the fundraising, calling every single person that we'd ever worked with, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then when the center opened, she said, why don't you be the creative program director? And I thought, So I said, okay, well, I'm not busy right now. And that being not busy right now has turned into a 20-year career. Wendy passed away a few years after we opened. And so I just started developing, it was all these programs and different kinds of modalities that I had tried and used myself and felt very healing in my life. In fact, had wanted years before to open a place for women, almost like a retreat that they could go to, but I couldn't figure out how to raise the money. So a few years into this, I thought, oh my God, here I am. This is what I'm doing here. So we service about 1,000 people a year, of course, now with working virtually, and we'll go fully hybrid in September. We offer services to cancer patients, anyone in their family, their children, if you're a friend of someone and you're emotionally invested. And what we offer is support. And of course, many programs that deal with the emotional and physical side effects of a cancer diagnosis. A lot of creative programs, because I believe that that's very healing for your spirit. And I did programs for I don't know how many years. And then I think at some point, 2008, 9, 10, somewhere in there, I became the executive director. So that's what I've been doing. And I've been really fortunate because of having such a great career in the film business. I've been able to reach out to a lot of people to support us. I know that what we do really makes a great difference in people's lives. And guess what? It's all free. We don't charge a penny for anything.
Wow.
Not one penny. And everyone told Wendy, no, it's possible. No, you can't do it. But I know that what we do works and helps. So that's what it is. And it's We Spark Cancer Support Center. They can find us on the internet, and we have a beautiful new website. So if you need support anywhere, know that it's free, no matter where you are, now that we're on the internet, and you can join us. So I always say to people, I hope you never need us, but if you do, we're there.
Well, it's an inspiring story, and to use all of your talent and time to do something that, and to give back in that sort of way, is just very inspiring. Thanks again for talking to me today. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for inviting me, David.
If you like what we're doing over here at the Stephen Kingdom and would like to show us a little monetary love, our Patreon has all sorts of exclusive goodies for our supporters, including behind-the-scenes featurettes, early access to episodes, and your name in the credits. Long days and pleasant nights, concert watchers.